All right, everyone. Welcome to our Honolulu Users Group. More for nonprofits, but everybody's welcome. And today we've got a really cool topic. There's a lot of people that are coming into the ecosystem, and the Salesforce ecosystem is so huge, and it's sometimes a little bit difficult to figure out your footing and how to navigate. And so I thought, Laurel has been doing some really, really cool work in the community and helping people try to navigate the ecosystem. So I'd like to welcome Laurel Mitchell, who is our guest speaker. And hi, Laurel. And Laurel's located in Oakland, California. And Laurel, I'd love for you to start maybe telling us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into Salesforce? What your journey has been like, and how did that move you into the kind of work that you're doing today?
Yeah, I actually even prepared a slideshow if you would
Yay!
like me. I
Oh,
think I
yes,
just
yes.
need screen share privilege.
Yep. Let me give that to you right now.
You'll learn this about me. I need my Canva slides.
I love Canva. I've had
I'm
so much fun.
obsessed.
I know.
Same.
I thought I was like, oh, PowerPoint's just fine. And then you look at the
Oh
difference. It's
no.
like, no, no, Canva's way better. So yeah, my name is Laurel Mitchell. I'm in the Bay Area, California. I'm currently a Salesforce consultant and career coach. I've been in Salesforce industry for about a decade, and I've spent over 15 years working with nonprofits. I started my career forever ago, it feels like, as a high school math and science teacher at a boarding school in upstate New York. And that was, I graduated in '09, the year of one of many recessions. And I was like, what the heck do I do with my bachelor's degree? And I went off and I became a teacher. And that was good. But the career trajectory for teaching just felt a little bit much for me. It's like, okay, well, I can work for 2 more decades and then maybe get up to like 60K or become an administrator or something like that, which I didn't. I liked working with the students. I liked being part of people's development. And so to me, I was like, I got to figure out something else to do. So I moved back home to where my family is in Boston, and I was just doing a bunch of odd jobs. I think at one point I had like 3 or 4 different temp jobs. I was like, I'll stuff envelopes here, I'll do QA testing here, I will book your meetings, whatever you need. I'm your gal, right? I did that for a few years, and one of those temp jobs was at a nonprofit that was just switching to Salesforce. So they were on a different CRM. They were on Sage and they needed to do the transition working with the consultant. And I got to be a part of that process. And that was really when I opened my eyes and I was like, whoa, there's basically computer programming without the programming part. Tell me more. I can Boolean operate my way through some stuff. I'm decent at Excel, but traditional computer science was never super appealing to me. My father's in the industry and it just never seemed like he was having that much fun. So I was like, I got to find something else. And Salesforce was really appealing to me. So I was like, okay, you know what? Why don't I try to make that my actual job? And so I did a couple jumps before actually becoming an admin. I was essentially a business analyst for a large nonprofit called Year Up. They're across the whole country. I was supporting their sales team. So I got to do a lot of travel, which was nice when I was, in my early 20s and I wanted to do that kind of thing. I got a couple certs while I was there using professional development resources. I also, while I was working full time at these nonprofits, I founded my own consulting company on the side. Mostly started just helping friends who were at these dinky little nonprofits, like 2 full-time staff, and they got the Salesforce grant for the licenses, and they're like, what the heck do I do with this? And I was like, oh, I'll set it up for you. And since I've grown that into less on the implementation, and now I'm doing the career coaching and cert prep, which is kind of nice because I feel like I've gone full circle. I'm back to what feels more like teaching and development, but I'm not working 100 hours a week making 25K a year. So it's a much nicer way to be a part of that and still feel really fulfilled. I was a full-time admin at a nonprofit for a few years, and I'm recently in, well, now not recently, it's almost been a year. Last January, I quit my full-time job to do part-time consulting. So I work for an agency, 20 to 25 hours a week, helps pay my bills. And then it also allows me to do this kind of stuff, to do the career coaching and the cert prep, and hopefully eventually build a family and all that other good stuff that I want out of life, but it's not quite there yet. There's probably way more than what you wanted, Ruby, but I had the slide.
I love the slide.
That's really cool. I love the timeline because it really shows that there's no straight path to Salesforce, and everybody has all these twists and turns and ups and downs, and so that's very cool.
I would say I feel like it's way more rare to meet someone who's like, "Oh yeah, I knew about Salesforce in college and I studied computer science and now, I just did Salesforce." I feel like no one gets into this industry that way. We're all like, "Oh yeah, I was working with a woman, she was doing catering and chef work, and then she was a stay-at-home mom, and now she's at home backup and things like that." It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is really amazing. So excited now to learn more about, when people are first getting into the ecosystem, uh, especially now because there's so many roles that you can take on in Salesforce. You can focus on different types of clouds, and there's so much to learn that you can't know everything. I think that people had, when they first started out, Salesforce as a product was pretty much it. And now you've got, marketing cloud and service cloud and all these different clouds, and it almost seems like you have to specialize. Are you finding that that's part of what's going on with the ecosystem now?
Oh, yeah. And I would say, for your sanity and for your ability to be successful in the industry, even if you're really early on in your journey, I would say start to think about what specialty might make sense for you. And I always talk about all the different layers of the Salesforce ecosystem. Like there's Salesforce, the company itself has plenty of employment and lots of opportunities within it. Like I know friends who work on the Trailhead team who are doing like curriculum development, that kind of thing, which isn't technical at all. And then you could be writing the Heroku script behind the database that we're all using, right? So even within the company, there's a ton of opportunity. But then, like you were saying, there's all the clouds, every single cloud that you can imagine, and they keep adding more and more and more. At least so far, they seem to mostly align with industries. So if you are someone with some work experience, you may want to think about, have you at maybe you don't love your job, but do you like your industry? Because industry experience and industry knowledge is actually highly valuable, even if you don't have a lot of the Salesforce experience yet. That industry experience can give you a little bit of a leg up. So that's one thing I always tell folks to think about. And then the other is that there's this whole ecosystem. So regardless of the clouds and all that, there's also things around Salesforce. Like you can work for a customer as an admin or a developer or something like that. You can work for a consulting partner, so delivering services or training. You can work for a product partner, which is like my friend who's at Own Backup now, that's a product partner. Or you can work for the community doing things like the career coaching or running a community user group, things like that. There's a lot of ways to be involved with Salesforce. So I tell folks to think about, really take time to assess yourself, maybe even longer than you would think up front, is to really like, and I have like a little Google Doc that I can share with you to just kind of help you with some, yeah, some writing prompts. But I always tell people like, what job did you have that you actually liked? What about it did you like, or what did you hate? When you're like, I will if I don't ever have to run a mail merge again in my life, I'll be happy, that kind of stuff. And then go from there and figure out where you might be a best fit, and not just skill set, but what you want in life. Do you want flexibility? I know I wanted fully remote, part-time. I can work whenever I want. That's the kind of, so I was like, I think I kind of have to do consulting for that. or something freelancy. Because if you're an in-house admin, they want to be able to see you at your desk at 4 p.m. on a Wednesday. And I'm like, I'm going to the grocery store. Sorry. Like, if I don't have a meeting, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to brunch. That kind of thing. So that's, think about your skills that you already have or the skills that you want to grow, your desired lifestyle, your industry experience or interest. Or I always tell folks like, okay, maybe you're brand new, you're like a fresh out of college person, you're like, I don't have any industry experience. Is there a product or something that you like? Are you always on your iPhone? Is there something, are you really into games? Or, is there something that you can connect with where you're going to have a kind of natural interest? Because that's what always gets hiring managers excited, is like, you can tell when someone likes something and when someone doesn't. And it's a lot easier to want to hire someone who's like genuinely excited about the work, even if they don't know everything or they don't have all the experience. I think that's a lot more compelling than just like, oh, I need a job, or oh, my friend told me to apply for this, or I was told this makes a lot of money. The hiring managers don't really care about that stuff.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think that, the combination of those 2 things, those are, like, definitely the 2 levers, like, what industry knowledge do you have? And then what kind of lifestyle you would like to have. And I think that's where Salesforce really helps to provide it, it gives you different templates of things that you can kind of leverage. If you don't want to work a 9 to 5, there are options within the Salesforce ecosystem. Now, I think that everyone has the ideal lifestyle they'd like to have, but getting there is, a big part of the battle. And a lot of people get enticed with these offers now where, get your Salesforce admin cert and get a,
You'll
$90,000
make 100K in
4 months.
6 months, right?
I
Yeah.
know. And it's like this swarmy sales tactic, and so I'd like to caution people not to fall for that kind of stuff because, well, I don't know. I mean, what have you seen? Is that real? Is that a reality or?
My personal feeling on it, and why I stress the reflection alignment piece so much, is I really do believe that you're going to go the farthest and you're going to find the most success when you're enjoying at least most or part of it. You know, um, like I used to coach students at the Europe program, and everybody wanted to do cybersecurity because they make the most money. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe your first year you make 15-20% more than if you were a business analyst or whatever. If you don't like that job and you're miserable, you're not going to try hard. You're not going to put in any extra effort. You're not going to seem excited. So you're not going to get promoted. You're not going to have an easy time getting the next job. Plus, how the heck are you going to keep that up for 20, 30 years, right? It's better to start to think about your long-term goal and then figure out a reasonable path for yourself, because we are all beautiful, unique human beings who have completely different needs and desires. The more that you align your path with yourself, the more likely you are going to be successful. And things happen a lot faster than you might think. I was just posting recently, it was like 6 years ago, I was retaking my admin exam for the first time after I'd failed it. And it's like 6 years later, I'm making 100K part time. That was not, if you had told me back then where I would be now, I'd be like, yeah, we're never even going to buy a used car. What are you talking about? Like, you have a condo in the Bay Area and you're working part time? Like, are you crazy? But it can happen. And I really think it's, a lot of what I attribute to my success is being open to opportunities and then just really leaning in when I was enjoying myself. And, when I have that extra inspiration, lean into that, go get that cert if you're interested, or go watch that webinar, or whatever it might be, to keep yourself learning and growing. But you don't have to force yourself into a box just because, like, oh, that's the good one to be in. Like, good for who?
Yeah. The other thing that I find exciting because what lights me up is business analysis, and the BA cert now just came out. And I love documenting processes, really getting into the business and, what their drivers are. And so, what are you finding now with these sort of other roles where you don't really need to be an admin? I mean, you obviously need to know the product, but you don't necessarily need to build or be an admin. Are you finding that there's more doors opening
Oh,
around?
yeah. I think especially Salesforce trainer. I didn't used to see pretty much any job postings for Salesforce training or curriculum development, and now even like the Mason Frank survey has it as its own line in the salary bands now, which it didn't used to have a few years ago. That's becoming bigger. I think also as the industry grows, it diversifies and it creates new opportunities that folks are going to start to pour into. So it's like, maybe you can't get that entry level admin job that asks for 3 to 5 years experience. So some people are looking at like the BA track or the Salesforce Associate exam, that one that just came out. There are new ways to kind of get your foot in the door of the ecosystem, and it's like what I was saying before. I don't think there's any correct path. I think they all lead to success as long as you stay motivated and you keep working at it and you're enjoying it most of the time along the way.
Mhm. Um, what about, there's a lot of when you're looking at resources or talking to career coaches, there's always that buzzword, you have to network.
I might
So
have a slide on networking.
talk talk to us a little bit about what you found is a successful formula for this networking thing, because there's all different ways of doing it.
Oh yeah. I mean, so when I was like whatever 22 at my first real corporate job or whatever, and I was told go network, I thought it was like you bring your business card to a networking event and you have something that you're looking for, and then you find someone who's the exact match, and you're like, here's my business card, and then they're like, here's my business card, and then you get hired tomorrow. That is not at all how networking works in my like some of the best networking I've done. We started having just random coffee conversations or liking each other's LinkedIn posts like 5 years before anything ever came from it. I think just like if any folks are in account management or any kind of relationship building job, you understand the importance of nurturing relationships and building them over time. I think it's really easy. It never feels good when you're like, I feel like this person's just talking to me to get something out of it. Like this feels very transactional. And it's the same case even with, work networking is a lot of us just want to like get to know each other and get to see what's going on. Like Ruby, you and I met in like the Slack group, right? For nonprofits or in through Sarah or something. I can't even see, I can't
Sarah.
even remember. It's
I
been
know. Yeah. And I reached out. So I really like what Laurel had to say in Sarah's group. And I reached out. She was nice enough to give me some of her time. And here we are. So
yeah, and you never know. And there's been times where I'm like, oh, this person's my competitor. I'm probably just going to have to make sure I don't step on their toes. And then, like, 2 years later, we're talking about how to share resources with each other. And you want to be a guest speaker. And can I give can I call you out on my Facebook group or whatever, things like that. Or someone I thought was going to be a customer who ended up being a mentor. You just never know until you actually take the time to get to know the people and to continue to nurture those relationships over time. And it's kind of like planting your seeds. Don't just do it once with one person. Kind of get yourself into a regular schedule of meeting with groups like this one. Or what did I put on my network slide? We can see. Yeah, you can think about like affinity groups. That's another, some advice I give folks is sometimes, especially if you're not in a group that's like the mainstream, sometimes it's nice to find a place where you can bond with people who identify the same way as you. If you're a veteran, or if you're someone who identifies as a woman or a person of color, I find that those groups are pretty good ways to network more naturally or genuinely and feel more connected to folks. And then you can look around like with your community, if you're at a school or if you're in a program of some kind, or if your employer offers any kind of affinity groups, depending on how big they are, that's another good place to look. And then, just schedule interviews, informational interviews with people. You're like, oh, I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while. You seem like you have cool stuff to share. Do you want to spend 10 minutes with me on a video call? I'll buy you Starbucks or whatever. I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of ways to network that aren't going to a formal event in your suit coat and passing each other business cards.
Mhm. Um, and guys, please jump in if you have any questions, because I'll just keep uh peppering along with questions.
Yeah.
Unless you have you want to walk us through your slides.
Oh, I think we're pretty much touching on all of them. I was realizing I have along the role alignment as well. I made this little graph. I'm a visual person, so I need visuals. This is not, there's no like objective measurement to this graph. It's just what me and some of my friends in this industry have felt was appropriate for some of these roles. So if it helps you to see kind of the graph of technical expertise versus seniority, trying to think about what path you might want to take or what might make sense for you. If I want to become an architect one day, maybe I hop to solution engineer first, or maybe I've got some coding experience. I start as a developer and then kind of work my way towards my end goal.
Mhm.
And just please don't be confused and think that technical expertise or seniority equals pay either, because sales managers can make a bank. If you are like in a commission-based role and you're really good at sales, you can make a lot more money than a consultant or an architect. It kind of just depends on the company you're at, the kind of role that you're in, that kind of thing.
Cool. Banu, you have a question.
I do. Thanks, Ruby. Thank you, Laurel. This is like an amazing talk. I'm having
Oh,
so much fun
good.
listening. Yeah, just the way you describe things is so clear, and like the you're relating to like the natural desire to do the work versus just the money. Like these have been great conversations. So it's been like listening to an awesome podcast while I
Oh,
roam around my house doing my Sunday chores, or Saturday chores. So I appreciate the talk. One question I had was, and we talk about gateway careers, and I feel like you were in one of them, which is you worked at a nonprofit that was implementing Salesforce, you got hooked on it, and now you're here. What are some other gateway careers that you're seeing out there? Like I think like customer service rep. Like I feel like some great admins I've met were in the call center using Salesforce, and they made their way over to like the Center of Excellence team.
yeah.
But what do you see?
My opinion on Gateway is that the easiest first step is the one that's adjacent to where you are now. So, if does your company where you're currently employed use Salesforce? Can you go talk to the IT team or the project manager and just start creating a relationship? That was one thing I did at Year Up. Even though I wasn't, they told me they needed an administrator, and what they really meant was administrative assistant, which is very different.
Mm,
I found I was like, "What?
yeah.
Where's my back end credentials?" They're like, "A what?" So I had to be a little bit smart about that, and I was like, starting to go out to coffee with the IT people, and eventually we end up presenting at Dreamforce together about our Lightning migration for the sales team. And I was presenting, like from the user side, and then I had my IT colleague presenting from the tech side and talking about that. So if you already have an opportunity where you are, start to dig up where that might be. Or, my company is 5 people and we don't use Salesforce. Okay, great. There's probably not a lot of opportunity there. So then you
Hmm.
can look at other companies that are using Salesforce, a role that might be similar to yours or that you feel like you have the skill set to fulfill. So like when I left teaching, I was like, I don't know what the heck to do. I don't want to keep going to the classroom, even though I like it. It's just burning me out. So I was like, well, what do I know as a teacher? Organization, curriculum development. I can talk to the principal and the student and the parent. So to me that made sense as like office. I was an executive assistant basically. So it's like, yeah, I can manage your calendar. I can email the VP of this other nonprofit and all that. So I think that's another thing to consider is there a role in the same industry that's kind of similar to yours, but where they're using Salesforce or that kind of thing. And then you start to take everybody out to lunch. You like figure out what, the IT person's favorite coffee is or whatever, so that you get that
Mhm.
experience and get that visibility. I would also say along just, you know, what I'm getting at is this is the question of how do I get experience kind of thing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, don't hold yourself back from just getting a dev org and starting to build stuff, because that was like the lightning migration and a lot of that. I built it in my own dev org first because IT was dragging their feet. It was one of those where like my team didn't budget it, their team didn't budget it. If it's not in the budget, it ain't getting done kind of thing. So I was like, but it needs to get done. It's driving me
Mhm.
crazy
Mhm.
that we're on Classic. It's not built properly. We can't put in the line items that we need. So I just built it in my dev org for my own
Mhm.
experience. And then when we actually did have the budget for it, when we finally got on the same page, I was like, here, I basically made it for you on a silver platter. And I even gave the IT team logins to my dev org. And I was like, can you just build that unless you hate it? you know? So
Mhm.
I think people are waiting to be like invited to the best possible example of hands-on experience. Like, I want to work for a nonprofit doing their implementation. Like, your hands-on stuff doesn't have to be that fancy. Even
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
building a report in a dev org, or I've worked with people who've built things like this one woman I worked with, she's into wine. And so she goes to Napa a lot and she literally has bottles all over her house to the point where she can't remember where she put the bottle. She
Mm.
made a Salesforce app to track where her wine was. And then when she's making dinner, she can like look up, she's like, oh, I feel like a red would be good with what I'm making. And then she can like filter Salesforce for wine,
Where is that bottle?
Yeah.
right? Exactly. And it's not like that app has to be complicated, right? It's like, is it red or white? Maybe something else, the location, it's like one object or something like that. But the practice of building stuff on the back end and then using it is so helpful for you when you're going into interviews and you're applying for new jobs. Then you can talk coherently about it. Because a lot of people do hands-on projects that are like, they're told what to do step by step, and then they get in the interview and they're like, so what have you done in Salesforce? And they're like, I did a group project. uh Let me read you the description, like that. No
Ah,
hiring manager cares about that stuff. They're like, but what did you actually do and what did you learn from that experience, right?
mhm.
Well,
So Laura,
quick follow up on that. Oh, sorry, Ruby. Just
no, no, go ahead,
last question.
go ahead.
Last question. So you're talking about a lot of like self learning, which I think Salesforce is awesome. They give us all this stuff for free. Where does Trailhead sit in your personal development, and how do you recommend it to others in terms of getting to that same point?
I feel like I probably shouldn't be so blunt about my feelings on Trailhead, but y'all seem open to my style. So I think I have like 40 badges. I don't care about ranger status. I don't care about any of that. I think Trailhead is great for your own learning. I use Trailhead quite often when I'm like, what the heck is omni-channel? Or like, how do I want to roll out engagement plans with my nonprofit. I've heard of the term before. I kind of know what they are, but I don't know
Mhm.
the specific. But I
Yeah.
basically read like the 2 paragraphs I need, and then I skip the
I,
questions because I just don't care about the badges personally.
yeah.
Some people love that. Some people are like, I'm 3 times ranger or whatever. Good for you. Great for them. Whatever makes you happy and motivated. For me personally, I use it just as like training and for kind of getting the basic information about a
Like a quick how
topic.
to.
Hmm.
Right. Right. I wonder if that is kind of correlated to when you grew up on the platform. Like it
Probably.
sounds like you grew up before Trailhead, right?
Oh yeah.
And
The first
Yeah.
time I took the admin exam, there was no trailhead. I had to read help documentation to study. Yeah, I'm
Right,
one of
right. Did
those.
you get any of the
Wow.
books at a Dreamforce? Because I have a great friend who
I
she
still
still has a
have
stack of massive books that she collected at Dreamforce, like
I used to
2014.
teach the Salesforce University class for cert prep, and they would give you that thick textbook. And I have like the teacher copy somewhere in this
Wow,
house. I have like, I'll have to find it so I can pull it out one day.
that's
Wow.
funny.
I'm so happy that you said that about Trailhead because that's a lot of times that I don't give a hoot about, the points and all of that stuff. But I use it more like if I need to learn about something new or refresh my memory, I'll just go and read through the documentation. Maybe I'll do a few of the little project things just to get my, get the system limbered up and all of that. But uh I find it valuable for that as well. It's more like a resource where you can go back and relearn something and then and even do the challenges sometime just to make sure that I get it. But I know that like you're saying that some people get really into the gamification of it and it's almost like are they really learning anything or are they just amassing points? You
It
Exactly.
it's weird though, right? Because in our training program, there is a correlation between trailhead points and passing the admin exam. So like
oh
what we see is if people have 80,000, well, Ruby, you went through our program. So,
yeah.
if people have over 80,000, they pretty much out of the gate pass the exam first try.
I wonder
And
if
folks who
that's
have less, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
it might just be indicative of people who are just spending more time
Yes.
studying
Yeah.
as opposed,
Yeah. That's what
I
I said.
don't know if it
It's a
has
means
to
to an
be
end, right?
trailhead. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Yeah. They're just exercising themselves and they're just really good at focusing and getting stuff done. So they'll probably do well anyway.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting topic because I personally, I don't know how many, I mean, I think I have like 10 badges.
I think I used to have like 18, and then I started pulling up my trailhead on these types of calls to like demonstrate. And I'm like, oh, don't look at that
I got to
corner.
get this up a little bit.
Don't judge
The only
me. I
reason
have five
I,
certs.
right. Okay. That's great. That's great. You're 5X certified. That's good.
Exactly. I think, and I have yet to see an employee a job posting that says, preferred super badges or preferred triple X
Right.
Ranger. Like
Right.
employers don't even
Yeah.
know what Trailhead is in the first place, and they definitely don't care about your badges. They care if you know what you're talking about and if you can apply it to the job. That's what they care about.
Yeah. Yeah. Erwin has a question. Go ahead, Erwin.
I was going to add to Banu's comment in terms of studying for the certification for the administrator. I was up until 2 a.m. I got up at 7:30 to go, do my normal thing. And then I took my test around 10:30 and passed that day. But I was dead
Yeah.
beat right after.
That's
Now,
awesome.
I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are about this, but there's this whole thing about, you get your cert, but that does not necessarily mean that you have the experience to go right into an admin job.
Yep.
And so there's this thing about, well, you can just go and volunteer for a nonprofit. And
Where's Gordon Lee's article? Everybody
I
needs to read that.
I was gonna, I read Gordon Lee's and I completely agree with it because what makes you think that a nonprofit is any less worthy than a for-profit business? You would never go into a for-profit business and start mucking around their Salesforce instance, their org. What makes you think that it's okay to do that with a nonprofit? Just because nonprofits like volunteers, but you can't go in there and start mucking around and screw up their org.
I know.
Um,
I'm so happy that this specific topic has changed, I want to say, over the last 3 to 5 years. Because when I was looking for jobs the first time around, like, whatever, 7 or 10 years ago, that literally everybody just told you, oh, go and catch a firework, do a volunteer project at a nonprofit.
right.
Oh, do a full implementation for free. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
don't have that much time, and the nonprofit's not going to like my work. Like,
Mhm.
why are we doing this to ourselves? That's why you'll notice when I talked about hands-on experience, I said, go get a dev org and build something that's meaningful to you that you'll actually use, because that's the kind of experience that you'll actually be able to speak about coherently. Because I've talked to people who did the nonprofit volunteer thing and asked them like, great, well, what did you learn from that? Tell me about your experience. They're like, oh, well, I mean, I kind of just like followed a guide, and then I worked with this group and we all split it up. I was only responsible for like this one page. And I'm like, so what was the whole point of doing that? You
Mhm.
know, like the hands-on experience you should be doing should be translatable to how you talk about what you know. It shouldn't just be a thing that you do to check a box, because that's almost scarier to an employer, is like, you spent 60 hours on this project and you can't even tell me what the goals and objectives were and how you achieved them. Like, that's a little scary. I'd rather you tell me I spent 2 hours building this test tracker app in a trailhead playground and I use it all the time because it's cool and I like it, you know.
Mhm.
It's helped me actually pass my test or whatever. That's way more valuable to an employer than something that you don't really understand. And two, like, the admin exam doesn't cover nonprofit pack. Like, there's a whole
No,
data architecture behind it. Like the
yeah.
household model, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people make a record type for contact and like all these other things. I'm just like, please don't. Please don't.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is that there's not a whole lot of training for NPSP. I mean, they have some trailheads, but it's not enough. And if anyone is interested in learning more in depth, the whole NPSP model, Sarah Epting is actually my instructor, and that's where Laurel and I met. She has an NPSP masterclass that's actually going on right now, and she'll walk you through 8 weeks of nonstop getting into the NPSP org. Abigail is also in that class. I'm a TA this semester. So if you really, if you decided that you want to focus on the nonprofit cloud and nonprofit specifically, you've got to wrap your head around NPSP, because it's
Oh, yeah.
very, very different than your regular sales cloud. So
Well,
especially,
now it's not just NPSP. Now you can get a million add-ons. You can get the
yep,
case management module and the program management
OPM
module
and
and
yep,
Elevate and outbound funds. There's like a million new things that you can put on NPSP.
yeah. And also, the one thing that I'm getting exposed to as well is how does NPSP talk to your accounting system? And you've
Yep.
got this gateway with accounting subledger, and it's it gets it gets really hairy. So, yeah. So if anyone's interested in focusing on nonprofits, that would be a way to go. Um, Another question I have for you is, oh my goodness, I just lost it. I had it on my, oh, I hate when that happens. Ah, anybody else have a question while I try to that's the one I just had. Katrina, do you have any questions? I see you nodding your head a lot, so.
Hi, Laurel. Thank you so much for, making your time here today. Like I say, I'm new to the islands, so I know you in the Bay Area. I was there 3 months ago. I just moved here. So I recently certified. So, how like you say that, build your own portfolio and like showcase work and all that stuff, right? And I did that, but I can't even solve my own problem. I'm creating flow and I mess it up and I'm just, and I don't even have a business. I think I had a lot of experience, right? Like how you did it, you do like a little here, job here and there, but I cannot connect to my experience to Salesforce. Like I cannot deliver translate business solution into practical Salesforce solution, right? That is my biggest pet peeve here. Even my own solutions, because I was trying to develop an app to record my running every day and like making sure that my shoes is good after 300 mile, right? And that's it. I was kind of stuck, I wasn't able to move beyond that app, and I wasn't able to like kind of more connect more. Maybe I'm not plugged into the Salesforce system so much, but I cannot plug in so much because I feel so stressed because everybody's so plugged in, you know? So how can you manage that?
Yeah, I definitely like I can't go on LinkedIn much anymore because even after being in the industry for over a decade, I get horrible imposter syndrome and FOMO from just looking at LinkedIn for a second. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing anything with my life. So I would say, first of all, don't, if you know something's stressing you out, avoid it, like LinkedIn and like comparing yourself. I think this is something we all do just naturally. It's like comparing ourselves to someone else. Like I compare myself to Sarah and I'm like, Sarah's got all these people and she's got her, I should do my own NPSP class. I've had my study guide in development for like 5 years. What am I doing? But it's like, it's okay. I think getting overwhelmed is kind of your enemy in this industry, especially. And it's very easy because Lord knows there's plenty to get overwhelmed by. So, pick something that you're actually going to be excited by. Like if you're going to do your running app, is there an app that you had used that's not on Salesforce before that you could kind of at least do like an exact copy of to start? Or can you make a paper wireframe of what you'd want it to look like? And then talk to someone like, Sarah or myself. I do like advisory services for this kind of thing to help coach folks through it. Can you then go to an expert and have them fill in the gaps that you're missing? But just take it like one small step at a time and make sure you understand what you're doing. That's like what I've been saying this whole time is like, doesn't matter if you build this whole giant flow if you don't understand why you did it or what it solved, right? Start from the basics. Like it sounds like your biggest challenge is you want to know when to replace your shoes. I need to replace them at 300 miles. Okay, so bare minimum, I need to just track for every run how many miles, right? And I don't know if you have multiple pairs of shoes, but maybe that's all you need is like the date, the number of miles, and the pair of shoes. Just start there. Start super simple. Use it a little bit, and then you'll realize like, oh, it would be so nice if the date like pre-populated with today or something like that. And then you can go Google, how do I default value a date field? Or, just little things like that. But start from the basics. What is one problem that you're experiencing that you want to solve? And then maybe some examples of how it's already been solved with a different system, and then kind of work your way from there and turn off LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever it is that's making you feel less than at that moment because it's not serving you.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sure Ruby could help you with the translating business requirements to Salesforce. That's like her jam.
Yeah.
Well, now that triggered Katrina's question reminded me of the question I was going to ask, which is that I think that's probably the thorniest thing for new admins is to be able, because like when you're doing Trailhead, it's very prescriptive. You click here, you click there, and then it's really difficult to align that with, okay, well, why did I do that? And how does that serve a business need? And so that translation really is hard. And what I'm finding, especially when I start to talk to different admins, is that they turn in more into order takers than actually thinking about, okay, well, what's the business need? What is the person trying to achieve by telling me I need to add this field?
Can you make a
For what purpose?
checkbox?
Yeah,
That's
can you
my
make a
favorite.
checkbox? Or can you delete that field? And oh yeah, sure, I can delete that field. And then now you've just broken the system because that field is associated to like a bazillion other things,
Yep.
right? Well, probably Salesforce wouldn't allow you to delete it anyway, but adding that checkbox for what purpose? Because every piece of data in Salesforce should have a purpose. Are you reporting on it? Are you, what are you doing with that?
Right. Do you need to see it in front of you on the page right away? Or is this something that you're going to be looking at once a week or once a quarter that we should solve with reporting? How often is it going to be updated from what system? Are you sure you're only ever going to need one checkbox, or is this the kind of thing where there might be multiple, Well,
Right.
yeah, we have this one thing this one time, but next year we're going to add another thing and another thing and another. Well, that solution might look a little different from one checkbox, right? It's learning to ask the right
Right
question
questions.
as you get through it, which is hard at first. That's why I'm like, just start simple. Just start with the one. I just need to know when I hit 300 miles with this one pair of shoes.
Hmm.
Build a one object called shoes or runs or whatever, put two fields on it, the pair of the date, or three, the date, the pair of shoes, and the mileage, and then go from there. Because we create so much tech debt, Ruby, by doing that, like
As I'm
order
gonna say,
taking business. And then eventually all your shit breaks each other. And then you're like, what happened? Well, what happened is you didn't look at it from a systems perspective, and you didn't. And that's the other thing. Users get upset when you ask them questions like, why do you need that checkbox? Like, what do you mean, why? Of course I need that checkbox. I'm like, well, there's like 20 different ways to solve, the problem of needing to know what accounts have this quality. I need to know what the point, is this have an expiration date? Are you going to use it again next year? Is it only ever going to be this one thing? There's a lot of things that go into that.
which leads me to something else that I don't think is talked a lot about in the ecosystem. I think that it's starting to shift, but being an admin, obviously you have to have the technical chops. You have to understand Salesforce. You need to know all the bells and whistles and know how to navigate it. But a big part of working as an admin also takes a lot of people skills, because for that very reason that you mentioned, is that people don't necessarily like being questioned, but there's an art to asking questions, and there's an art to learning how to help people think about their process, because oftentimes people are, they've cobbled things together organically because they needed to solve a work problem, they needed to get an outcome, they needed to do something, and so they cobbled something together, and then that thing grew and grew and grew, which we talk about our tech debt. But they've never really stopped to think about, well, what's my process here, what am I doing, and why am I doing it? And to try to get people to, kind of reel back and uncover those layers of the onion is not easy. And it is something that there's a lot of skill and communication and all these other, what we call soft skills, that we have to integrate. And what are your thoughts about that?
Oh yeah. I think the longer I'm in this industry, the more I change my like people psychology skills to tech skills.
Mm.
I used to think it, when I was a new admin, I was like, oh, it's like 90% tech and 10% people. And then probably midway, I was like, it's 50-50. Now I'm like, it's 90% people skills and like 10% tech. Plus, now you can just like outsource the tech part if you don't know what you're doing, get a third party developer or someone to build it for you. But if you don't even know what you're building and why and how you're going to use it, there's no point. Like I think we've all experienced this either as the customer or as the consultant or whatever it is like people cannot absorb that much change. Like they can absorb probably a fraction of what you think conservatively. And then there are times where it's like, well, the consultant built all this stuff and I really just needed this one report. And now I've had to do like 10 hours of training. My eyes are glazed over. I don't want to do half of this. I'd rather be walking my dog or whatever. You're never going to use it if you don't understand it and it's not delivered in kind of bite-sized pieces. So that's why I'm glad I still have my experience light up, is like back-end technical experience is important, but it's not everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even knowing how to write a good email or like how to have good office etiquette, like please don't schedule the meeting 5 minutes before you want to have it the day of the due date, some basics like that give you a leg up over some other people who aren't quite there yet. If you're really organized and you can ask good questions and you can navigate the politics, then you're probably a lot better off than someone who's got 3 certs, but they don't know how to do any of that. It's like, well, you can build whatever you want, but if you don't train on it and you don't communicate about it and you don't roll it out efficiently, no one's going to use it. and then you're just going to get annoyed because you spent all this time building the thing that no one ever used, and they're annoyed because they just wanted that one thing, and instead they're like having to deal with all this other stuff that they never asked for in the first place.
Yeah, I would agree. I also think that another couple of skills that are really necessary is understanding change management, which is that
Yeah.
behavior piece. Because oftentimes when you're asking people to change a process that they are so married to because they can do it with their eyes closed, there's so much friction involved in learning something new. And unless it's like a COVID moment where you are forced to do it, most of the time people are not going to do it. And I can't tell you, like, even one of the clients I'm working with is we built this, nice little template for her to be able to put everything into a CSV file and upload it. And she still to this day has not used it. Why? Because she knows her process is inefficient, but she knows it and she feels comfortable with it. And how do you get that person to adopt a brand new process, even though it's going to save her time, you know? And this is the conundrum I think that we find oftentimes as consultants or admins. Trying to get people to adopt the technology is 90% of the
Yeah.
battle, because why build something if people are just going to have it go dark and not use it? That's a waste of the nonprofit's money and resources.
Yeah, and then eventually, I feel like most nonprofits, the admin is already in tension with the rest of the organization. There's already, in my experience, we spent all this money getting the technology in the first place. Why do I need an admin? Isn't it going to be, good enough to run itself? That's already a challenge. And then I always say, like if leadership knew enough about the tech side to know how to, use Salesforce efficiently, they wouldn't need to hire an admin. You're there to give technical guidance and to help them think through the way that they should be using the tool. They're not, if they don't know it, which is also really annoying and frustrating when you're like, you don't even know what an object is and I'm trying to explain something complicated. And that's where like a lot of these soft skills come in. And like if you were a teacher or you were someone who had to explain complicated things to an audience that didn't understand it, you probably already have a lot of these skills, whether you realize it or not. For me, my strategy has always been figure out how to get leadership to buy in, even if it's a tiny bit, even if you can move them from, I hate Salesforce, I already used it at my old company, I already decided I never wanted to use it again and I'm being forced. If you can move them from that to like, I really don't want to use it, but I'll attend your training, like that's a win, start to get leadership to buy into Salesforce more. And then I don't like to force a lot of changes on people if they're not ready. So it's like, my nonprofit that I'm working with for like 4 years is finally ready to use engagement plans. They probably could have used it on day one, but they weren't even using like open opportunities, let alone, yeah, it was like as soon as the check comes in, it goes in the system, but otherwise it's all in the Excel sheets. So there's like a lot of steps that you have to go through first to be able to use the thing. But, I mentioned engagement plans whenever they asked me questions that would be answered by them. We have a lot of touch points with donors that are kind of manual. I'm like, there's this thing in Salesforce called engagement plans. That's basically that. But, well, you can use it when you're ready. I call it planting my seeds. I'm like, there is a thing, but you don't have to use it yet. You just tell me when you're ready, kind of thing. Because the other thing is budget too. A lot of this stuff does cost money, whether it's a license for the actual tool or just consultant or admin time to build it in the first place and customize it. A lot of it does take some investment. So, getting leadership to buy in over time, getting the small wins up front. Can you build a report that they've needed forever? Can you put that one stupid checkbox on the page that you know you're going to replace with a pick list later. Just put it on the page for now, knowing that, you know, we will need to revisit it. You know, what are some small wins you can get to make people like you? And then plant the seeds for, like, you know, the best way to do this would actually be like a campaign or an engagement plan or whatever it is. And then, you know, eventually they come to you and they're like, oh, hey, that thing you've been talking about, can we do it? I'm like, yeah, we can.
Katrina, let's see who. Okay, Katrina, you raised your hand. Banu, your hand is still raised. Did you still want to ask a question?
No, that's just me being me. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll
All
try
right,
to
go
drop
ahead,
it.
Katrina.
Oh yeah, here, lower. Thanks.
All right.
Well, I have a question. So, I got certified in July, and I've been trying to kind of get a job, find something, right? But like every time I look at it, there's like, so many applicants, and it just kind of discouraged me not to apply. So I went to like just networking and networking. I did apply for K2 university, fellowship, but it got closed this fall. So they not even open up a new, because the demand is less now. And then I applied for both Allen, their academy fellowship, didn't get that either because the candidate, they have overwhelming of qualified candidate. Anyways, so I was thinking, I don't know if my mindset is doing it right for myself or my career. I was thinking maybe like put myself out there as a super user instead of an administrator, and looking at a company that use Salesforce product, and then kind of gear myself through a positions that using Salesforce to get myself a foot in the door. I just want to be happy with my new career, flexibility. That's my goal. Because we're a military family, we move a lot. So we're not consistent, like being one place. And I just done with kind of keep looking for job. And
If you're
networking.
if you're military, have you looked at VetForce or Merivis yet?
So yes, I am with for Merivis, and I am applying for the HOH scholarship fellowship at the 23 in January. But it's such a competitive program now. They used to have like 60 candidate. Now they have 160 candidate that going to this fellowship. I don't not say that I'm not giving myself a chance, but like I say, I'm only do like 50% of the networking, and my, colleague is doing like maybe 110%. I'm not near where compared to what they're doing, because I still want a work-life balance. I want a balance. I don't want to put myself into something that I'm going to be discouraged later already, and I just starting out. I don't want to be, falling into that loophole, going crazy. So, when I go online and just looking for job, and just like, my first thing is I on the search bar, I put Salesforce. And then I went to those, role. It's just so hard to find, like, I don't feel like anything that was aligned to what I need as a super user. Like, how can you identify that? And do you think that it's a good idea for me to be a super user versus like an actual admin, like a junior admin?
Oh yeah, I think you can definitely, it kind of depends on the company and how you're going to be able to turn that user end experience into whatever you want as your long-term goal. It sounds like admin. But yeah, I think it sounds like for you, maybe instead of thinking about what role, think about what companies or what industry. Have you thought about, like, do I want to work at a really big company or a really small company? Do I want to work, what kind of business do I want to work for? Is it someone that's providing services? Is it a company that's creating products? What I would less focus on the titles and more focus on the qualities that you're desiring in your ideal job. Maybe it's like, I want really collaborative coworkers and I want to feel part of a mission. Then start to have informational interviews. If you like see a job post or read about a company that you're like, oh, that sounds like what I want, see if you can have an informational interview with someone who works there or who used to work there. Though actually, those people will be the most honest with you who don't work there anymore. They'll tell you the real shit. But yeah, start to get a feel for if you think you'd actually be happy. And it's kind of like to my earlier point, it's like when you're enjoying your role, whether it's I'm a developer, I'm an architect, I'm making 100K, I'm making whatever it is, like if you're enjoying it, chances are you're going to be taking advantage of more opportunities at that job. You're going to be trying to learn more about the company and what it does and its processes, as opposed to if you get a job and you're like, I hate waking up in the mornings, I fret staff meeting, right? Like, what the heck are you going to learn or grow in that kind of place, even if it is your like best title or whatever it was that you were looking for?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. For then, do you have like a template or something that kind of guide me through this, finding not my perfect role, but something that, because right now we're supposed to, learn about our company host, right? And we search out, but like I know that I can go to App Exchange and find out what system are they using. Okay. But I don't know if, okay, I'm interested in anything. I'm willing to learn anything, but my thing is, how can I narrow it down to like me, right? I need those guiding. Do you have any resource?
Yeah, so there's a link to my self-assessment template. It's just a Google Doc. You'll have to make a copy for yourself because it's read-only. The other things I recommend for resources are this Trailhead trail. It's called Career Development something. Let me grab it for you. This link. I really like, I think it's in this one, they have like profiles of different roles in the ecosystem. Obviously, they're not like perfect, but it is nice to read about like, oh, what is a day in the life of a marketing administrator? What's a business analyst do? Like that kind of stuff, I think will help you understand a little bit better, like what might be a good fit for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's, someone shared this previously, Salesforce Fundamentals free course. If you're trying to get certified, the certification days workshops are good. Oh, and the Mason Frank survey, I find is a really great resource. They do it every year. You just have to fill out their like lead gen form to download it, and then they email it to you.
Oh,
Where
cool.
is it? Yeah, they're calling it the hiring guide now, but it's at this link. I really love, so Mason Frank historically has done salary surveys. So every year they put out this survey with like average salary for admin, average salary for developer, and split geographically. Since then, that has become the last like 3 slides of like a 30 to 40 slide deck. And I love it because the rest of it's like, what skills are valuable in the industry? And, consultants, tell us about what perks your employer is giving you and things like that that are a little more qualitative as opposed to just the raw numbers. I mean, the numbers are great. Who doesn't love seeing like, oh, I could make so much money, but it's not really why we're in this, right? If anyone is interested, I also offer some of my own services. So I do my own master classes. So I'm doing one on, you already have your cert, but if anybody needs to get certified, you can sign up at prep2pass.eventbrite. I'm trying something new, which is a paid workshop. I'm going to do an hour and a half on reports and dashboards. I was thinking, well, everybody needs to pull 1 million reports for Giving Tuesday and all that other stuff. So that's on Eventbrite too. You can schedule a free coaching call. And then I have, you can do like a deep dive coaching session with me to go through like your self-assessment and things like that. Or we could just do like advisory services by the hour. All that's on my website, lm-consults.com. If you want to find any of those resources, or you can grab the links, like my Calendly and the Eventbrites. I'll throw all of those in the chat.
Yeah, I signed up for your prep class. Even though I got my admin cert, I'm studying for other certs, so I figured, you know, the prep to pass might be, I might be able to get some tips on how
Oh
to
yeah.
those other certs.
I'm hoping that the tips will be universally helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then this is Prep to Pass webinar and the reports and dashboards training is there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and don't be shy. I know people are getting nervous about booking a call. It's, in case you can't tell, I like talking about this stuff. So it's really not a problem for me to, you know, put something on my calendar. We can talk if you have like specific questions about your situation or if there's anything else that you need. Otherwise, yeah, I like the trailhead trails, and the trailhead thing also has a self-assessment in there, and then I made my own because I always like to make my own version of everything. So that's the long Google Doc link that I had shared in the chat.
I'm checking out that Salesforce fundamentals site. What is that
Oh
a
yeah.
thing? Oh, it is.
This
I've never heard of that.
slide is kind of old, so I haven't been to that website in a
Oh.
minute. Let's see.
Say we've moved.
Oh, well, okay, maybe don't go to that.
Okay, well, they give you a button so you can click that and then go into register now. Oh, cool. Okay. I
Let's
didn't know
see.
about that site. So that might
Oh,
be.
it is. Oh, it's from Salesforce. Cool.
Yeah, I didn't know it was from Salesforce. I never heard of that.
Okay, here's the newer link.
I have a question for your dashboard and report. Is there like capacity, number of a capacity, or you just like you looking for like 30?
I'm
people?
theoretically capping it at 30. No one has signed up yet, but I don't want it to be too many people because that's too much.
And it looks like it's Hawaii friendly time. It's 2 p.m. your time,
I
right?
tried.
What would it be? 11 a.m.
You're
on-
11 a.m. I was gonna do it at like 10 a.m. and I was like, no one's waking up at 7 in Hawaii for me. Nor do I want you to.
Ah,
I
that's
know it's a
the
little late for the Europeans, but it's doable for all of US.
yeah, and that's the other thing too that I'm finding is us in Hawaii, if you're working with East Coast time, the time zone thing is really, really challenging. I've lost so many opportunities because they would say, well, you know, we've got to stand up at 9 a.m. every morning. That means that I have to wake up at, you know, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning just to get to their
Just tell them,
stand-up.
thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, if something more reasonable comes by, call me, but I don't,
No,
you
I'm
don't want me to wake up at 7 a.m. to
That's what I
work.
told
You
them. I
don't
mean, if you
want
want like a zombie
pre-coffee.
on your
No,
call, you know, don't don't even bother.
no.
So yeah,
But it's nice because I'm available when it's there, like 6 or 7 p.m.
uh-huh. Yeah. So that's always a little bit difficult and challenging for us in Hawaii is the time navigating the time zone with East Coast.
Well, and Salesforce is like, it's big in Asia, it's big in Europe, it's big in the States. So how do you, like, when I'm scheduling a webinar, I'm like, okay, which time zone am I not going to be able to fulfill right now? Because I just can't host like, and I'm not going to do like 3 versions of the same webinar because I burn out.
Yeah. Well, Laurel, thank you so much. Awesome resources, great conversation, and I hope that people got some really good tips out of how to navigate this vast ecosystem that seems to be constantly growing. I don't know if any of you had an opportunity to check out Dreamforce, but now they're definitely going into artificial intelligence. They already are dabbling with that with Einstein. Now they're talking about it with Genie. I still can't quite figure out, what Genie does or what the promise. I understand the promise of Genie. I just don't know what's under the hood and how to make all that stuff work. But
Well, the
yeah,
reality is Genie is not going to help you if your data's trash or you
exactly.
don't even have the field to capture the data that you're going to report Genie on, right? So this is like back to
Exactly.
Katrina's earlier question, like, I'm overwhelmed. There's so many things. Just start with the fundamentals. Like,
Yeah.
every org's got dirty data. Every org could have a better organization and better, cleaner fields and pages and all that. Just start with the base. Then you can throw Genie on when you have like really great data and everything's organized. Then it's easy to plop Genie or whatever new fangled thing they come out with. You can put that on top.
I totally agree. And one of the real needs that I've been seeing in the market, especially with nonprofit, is just the concept of data management, data stewardship, data governance. Those things are completely missing. And I think that there's a real opportunity to train nonprofits in the importance of managing their data properly. Because, like you said, garbage in, garbage out. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
nobody wants to use Salesforce because they don't trust the data. So it has a ripple effect. That's a
What's
whole
that?
other conversation.
Oh, I know. I could talk for hours on because it's a snowball, right? It's like when your data's dirty and your systems don't work, you don't really know how dirty your data is. And then you
Yeah.
fix your systems and you're like, wait, all that data was wrong. And then you fix the data and you realize that the systems could be better. And then you just that's what you spend your whole career working on.
Yep. Yep. Well, thank you so much, Laurel. Thank you everyone for spending your Saturday morning with us. And please check back. We're going to have a little bit of an altered holiday schedule, but we'll have a session in November and one in December. So check out our LinkedIn page for the Honolulu User Group. And please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm under Ruby Menon. And have a wonderful weekend and see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.